This video contains spoilers for the featured film. All images used belong to their respective copyright owners and are used here for commentary and criticism purposes only. Please remember that statements made are my own opinion and you are free to disagree in the comments, but please do so respectfully. Hey there, Alley Cats, and welcome back to Movie Monday. Today, we're going to be experiencing a massive nostalgia bomb, at least for me, because I'll be reviewing and discussing Pokémon Detective Pikachu. Now, I want to take a quick trip down memory lane with you guys because I was such a Pokémon fan as a child. I didn't have many of the games, unfortunately, but I collected probably thousands of cards. I watched the anime religiously. For years, I even wore shoes that were meant for boys because I found this pair of light-up sneakers that had pictures of Pikachu on them. They were the best things ever, and I was obsessed. I did grow away from it after a while towards later generations, but I and many other longtime fans of the Pokémon franchise were still very excited for this movie when it was announced, but was it worth the hype? We will see. If you'd like to skip the plot overview and get right to my thoughts on the film, then you can skip to this timestamp in the video. So with that said, let's get right into it. Right at the start, we see a science facility experimenting on Mewtwo, but of course, being Mewtwo, something goes wrong and he escapes, pursuing a car whose occupants are unknown when it suddenly flipped over, causing a terrible crash. Elsewhere, we meet Tim Goodman, a 21-year-old insurance appraiser who wanted to be a Pokemon trainer as a kid but no longer seems to have any interest in Pokemon, even hesitating when his friend persuades him in attempting to catch a Cubone. But he does give it a try and fails. He then gets a call from Rhyme City Police informing him his father, Harry, was in the car accident while investigating a case, and although his body is missing, he is presumed dead. Tim travels to Rhyme City, built by a disabled man, Howard Clifford, and meant to be a place where Pokemon and humans coexist with no battling or trainers. And on his way to Harry's apartment, he meets Lucy, an intern at a news network and aspiring news reporter investigating Harry's accident and her Psyduck. At the apartment, he finds a small capsule of purple gas, so of course he has to open it and sticks it out the window when it becomes difficult to breathe, causing a group of Apoms outside to become hostile. He also finds Pikachu in the apartment and somehow is able to understand what he is saying, though they're chased away from the apartment by the aggressive Apoms. Pikachu is only able to communicate with Tim and reveals he has amnesia but knows he was Harry's partner by the label in his hat, and they decide to uncover what happened to Harry. The next morning, they seek out Lucy at the news network and she recognizes the gas capsule. Their investigation leads them to an underground Pokemon battle club where Pikachu is recognized by the owner, having fought and beaten his Charizard previously, and he demands a rematch. But having amnesia, Pikachu can't remember how to use his moves, and with Charizard hopped up on that purple gas, Tim goes to save him. In the scuffle, more purple gas is accidentally released, which affects all of the Pokemon in the stadium. Shortly after, the police arrive, and they are all arrested. Tim tries to convince the lieutenant that Harry is alive, but he shows them a video of the crash and states he couldn't have survived such a horrific accident. Later, a woman who also recognized Pikachu at the Fight Club arrives and takes them to the office of Howard Clifford. He tells them Harry was working on a case relating to the purple gas, revealing that it came from his son, Roger, who has been taking over Howard's company. He also claims that Howard is alive, playing a hologram reconstruction of the crash, showing that Mewtwo caused the crash, wiped Pikachu's memory, and kidnapped Harry. Tim and Pikachu go to Lucy, and she gives them information from Roger's computer at the news network that indicates some kind of cover-up. It leads them to the restricted facility where Mewtwo escaped from, so they break in and find more Pokemon being experimented on. They find another hologram prior to the Mewtwo experiments detailing the scientists' attempt to control Pokemon and learn that Harry was sent to capture Mewtwo himself. At this point, Roger, who has been watching them through security cameras the entire time, lets loose several Greninjas who attack and chase them from the building. Lucy's Psyduck unleashes a psionic wave that fends them off, but awakens a group of mutated, mountain-sized Torterra, and Pikachu is badly injured. Tim is able to ask for help from a Bulbasaur, so it, along with several others, lead Tim along with Pikachu into the forest, where they find Mewtwo, who heals Pikachu. He shows them a vision of Pikachu helping him escape, but suddenly he is captured by Roger. Assuming he had betrayed Harry by helping Mewtwo, Pikachu leaves Tim, so Tim and Lucy go back to the city to warn Howard while everyone is preparing for the upcoming Pokemon parade. Meanwhile, Pikachu happens upon the site of the crash and finds evidence that the Greninjas caused the crash, and Mewtwo was only trying to protect them. So he hurries back to town to inform Tim that Howard faked the hologram he showed them. Back at Howard's office, Tim arrives as Howard is using a Neuralink to transfer his consciousness into Mewtwo. As Mewtwo, he then releases an abundance of the purple gas from the parade balloons into the crowd, allowing him to fuse the humans with the Pokémon so they can obtain their powers. Pikachu fights off Howard while Tim finds Roger tied up in a closet with the Roger he had previously seen actually being a Ditto. The Ditto doesn't react well to the gas, so Tim is able to remove the Neuralink from Howard's body, which in turn removes his consciousness from Mewtwo. Howard is then carted off to jail, Roger promotes Lucy to an on-screen reporter, and Mewtwo returns everyone to normal, including Pikachu, who Mewtwo had fused with Harry after the crash to save his life and wiped his memory because... reasons? Anyway, he reverts everyone to normal, and Tim decides to stay with his dad. I have to say, my absolute favorite part of this movie is by far the visuals of everything. We've never had anything live action like this for Pokemon before, so to see a reality with flocks of Pidgeys flying around or people walking down the street with a Growlithe instead of a normal dog, it honestly made me feel like a kid again to sit there in complete awe of the world they created. Since this is the closest thing we'll ever see to real-life Pokemon. A few of the Pokemon designs were a little I'll admit, but for the most part, the filmmakers did an excellent job. I've also seen a common complaint that viewers need to be familiar with the Pokemon franchise and history before seeing the movie, which I disagree. Yes, there are probably a few jokes that some people might not get if they aren't familiar with the franchise, like one point when Pikachu is singing the original anime theme song, but it's not something essential to the plot. I think they really intended to create a film that newcomers to the franchise would understand and would also be enjoyable for longtime fans of the series. That is something I especially have to praise them for, because they did their best to let young kids be able to watch this film, but also make sure that older fans who grew up with this series would have a good time as well. There's a lot of adult humor to entertain them, which kids likely won't really understand if they aren't old enough, so I appreciate the effort to include as many people as possible in their target audience. Another common complaint I've heard is that the voice of Ryan Reynolds didn't fit very well with Pikachu, which I can sort of understand because anyone who is even slightly familiar with this series knows that Pokemon typically can't communicate like this with humans, with very few exceptions, so it might be a little jarring at first. Even I was a bit unsure of the idea when it was first announced, and I think if it was anyone other than Ryan Reynolds, it could have easily flopped, but he really made it work. And for that matter, everyone else in the cast was great in their roles as well. That being said, one huge problem I have with this movie is the ending, or really lack thereof. The big ending to defeat the bad guy that they've been building to this entire time is nothing more than Tim casually removing the Neuralink from Howard, and that's it. It's very anticlimactic, not really exciting, and it's really a massive letdown. There are so many ways they could have gone about this, so many other Pokemon they could have brought in, so much wasted potential. I almost couldn't believe that was all we got for a dramatic conclusion. I was sitting in the theater as Mewtwo starts turning everyone back to normal, and I'm thinking, this can't be it. There has to be more than this. We don't even get to see Lucy fulfilling her dream as a reporter in the end. The last time we see her, Roger is promoting her, so yeah, we know she's going to be an on-screen reporter, but that's it. We could have at least been shown a broadcast with her actually giving a report or something. So very disappointing, and definitely not a good note to leave off on. I also wish there had been more Pokemon fighting. I mean, I get that it's outlawed in the city that most of the movie takes place in, but battling is essentially the whole point of the franchise. I wouldn't even really consider the encounter with Pikachu and Charizard much of a fight because Pikachu just ran away the entire time because he didn't know how to use his moves. And even in the battle with Howard as Mewtwo towards the end, there were really only a few solid hits. The only explanation for this I can come up with is that although the games and even the anime largely revolve around Pokemon fighting each other, for such a large theatrical production like this, it could have been considered too much violence. So they probably had to really tone it down significantly to keep a rating that would still allow for it to be viewed by children. There were also many continuity and logistical errors throughout the movie, like the bad guy's big master plan doesn't make any sense why he would want to merge people with their Pokemon and they're not even interested. If he wanted to merge himself with a powerful Pokemon because he has this degenerative disease, then sure, but why everyone else? Clearly they aren't interested. It doesn't make sense. Or why Mewtwo felt the need to wipe Pikachu's memory when he merged him and Harry together. There was no reason for this other than without it there would be no movie. There's also no reason given for why Harry, a detective, was working for the evil scientists and agreed to go capture Mewtwo other than for conflict and plot reasons. So we can have that brief few minutes of, oh, is Harry actually a bad guy? I know they based the film's plot off the game Detective Pikachu, which I've never played personally, but from what I've read, the original story would have made for a much better movie. Because the newer additions the writers came up with, honestly, were mediocre at best. As I just mentioned, stick closer to the source material. All this nonsense about Mewtwo fusing Harry and Pikachu together because reasons, and Howard wanting to merge everyone with their Pokémon because more reasons, all that needs to be scrapped. There's no purpose to it, no logical reasoning, and it's just very weird. Also, they really put an emphasis on how depressing it is that Tim is no longer interested in his dream of becoming a Pokémon trainer, and everyone constantly points out how abnormal it is that he doesn't have a buddy Pokémon. And obviously, since Pikachu goes back with Harry at the end, it would have been perfect that Tim gets to keep Mewtwo, the ultimate Pokémon. Again, such wasted potential, such a disappointing ending. Another big change I would make is to Pikachu's battle with Howard in Mewtwo's body. Obviously, with Mewtwo being the strongest Pokémon, he would easily be able to defeat Pikachu. And what I had been anticipating while watching this movie is that when it becomes clear Pikachu cannot win this fight, then Mew would come in to fight Mewtwo and save the day. And I'm honestly really surprised they didn't go that route, because Mew was mentioned several times throughout the film. It was specifically said that Mewtwo was so powerful in the first place because he was created from Mew. And since the first Pokemon animated movie from years ago revolved around Mewtwo and Mew, it would have been perfect to give longtime fans that major nostalgia bomb, and it would also give a reasonable way to defeat Mewtwo. Yes, it would have been rather convenient that Mew just happens to appear seemingly out of nowhere, but the setup was there! All they had to do was follow through with it, and it would have made for a much more exciting defeat for the villain than just removing something from his head. Seriously, that ending bothers me so much on many levels. They'd set up for something really good, and I was on board for the entire first half of the movie, but the lack of a satisfying ending and decent explanation for many of the major plot events really dropped the ball. So with that said, I'm giving Pokemon Detective Pikachu my personal rating of 5 out of 10. Very fitting since half the movie was quite good and the other half was very much not. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and if you have any suggestions for movies I should discuss and review in the future. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe if you have not already, and until next time, I will see you guys later. Bye!